Commander Tail stood on the bridge of the survey vessel, watching the blue planet grow larger on the viewing screen. For 12,000 cycles, the Galactic Coalition had explored the stars without fear. The Varani brought wisdom, the Kesh brought technology, and the Dren brought strength. Together, they had built a civilization that stretched across 40,000 star systems. Nothing challenged them. Nothing surprised them anymore. Until today. The radio signals had been primitive at first. Simple broadcasts of sound and images, the kind every developing species sent into space. The Coalition had discovered hundreds of such worlds. They would wait, monitor, and eventually make contact when the species reached the proper level of development. Standard procedure. Safe. Predictable. But these humans had done something unexpected. In just 200 of their years, they had gone from those first radio signals to faster-than-light travel. It should have taken thousands of years. The Varani had needed 7,000 years. The Kesh had taken 5,000. Even the aggressive Dren had required 3,000 years to make that leap. 200 years. It was impossible. Yet the evidence floated in orbit above the blue planet. 3 human starships, crude but functional. Their engines burning with barely controlled power. "Sir, the humans are hailing us," said the communications officer, his translator already working on the alien language. Tail gestured for the channel to open. A face appeared on the screen. It was bipedal, like the Varani, but shorter and more compact. Its skin was dark, its eyes bright with intelligence. The human wore a blue uniform with symbols Tail did not recognize. "This is Captain Hyanwu of the Earth vessel Magandwa. Welcome to our system. We've been expecting someone like you for a long time." Tail blinked all 3 of his eyes in surprise. The human spoke with confidence, not fear. Most species trembled during first contact, overwhelmed by the reality of other intelligent life. This human smiled. "I am Commander Tail of the Galactic Coalition. We come in peace and friendship. We detected your radio signals many years ago. We figured someone would," Hyanwu said. "We've been listening to the stars ourselves. Nothing yet, but we knew we couldn't be alone. Would you like to come aboard our station? We've prepared a meeting room." The invitation was direct and casual, as if humans met aliens every day. Tail agreed, and within hours, a delegation traveled to the human space station. It was smaller than Coalition stations, but elegant in its simplicity. Clean lines, efficient design, and surprisingly advanced artificial gravity. Dr. G1 met them at the airlock. She was taller than Hyanwu, with long dark hair tied back in a practical style. She wore a white coat and carried a data device. "Welcome. I'm the head of our xenobiology department. I hope you don't mind, but we've been scanning you since you entered the system. Purely for medical purposes, of course. We wanted to make sure our atmosphere wouldn't harm you." "Most considerate," Tail said, though his own scanners had been doing the same to the humans. The results troubled him. In the meeting room, Captain Hyanwu introduced his crew. Lieutenant Daesung handled tactical systems. Engineer Su Bin managed their power cores. Researcher Young Sik studied other cultures, preparing for this day. Each human greeted the aliens with warmth and curiosity. The meeting went well. Humans asked questions about the Coalition, about other species, about the galaxy beyond their small system. They offered information about Earth, about their short but intense history, about their dreams of exploring the stars. But Tail could not stop thinking about the scanner results. That evening, back on his ship, he called his senior staff together. "I need you to verify something. The biological scans of the humans. Tell me what you see." The medical officer pulled up the data. "Their bone structure is incredibly dense. Much more than ours, more than even the Dren. Their muscle fiber is packed tight, optimized for both strength and endurance. They have redundant organs. 2 kidneys, 2 lungs, a heart with 4 chambers. Their blood carries oxygen with remarkable efficiency. Their healing factor, another officer added, is extraordinary. Small wounds close in days. Broken bones mend in weeks. They have something called an immune system that fights diseases constantly. Their own bodies are battlegrounds. What gravity do they evolve under? Tail asked. 1.0 standard. 10% higher than our homeworld. 30% higher than Kesh. The same as the Dren military training worlds. Tail felt a chill run through his body. What classification is their planet? The officer hesitated. Sir, according to all our metrics, Earth is a Class 12 death world. Silence filled the room. Death worlds were rare, planets so hostile that life barely survived. The Coalition had found 18 such worlds in all their explorations. None had produced intelligent life. The radiation, the diseases, the predators, the unstable weather, all of it made complex evolution nearly impossible. How? Tail whispered. How did they survive long enough to become intelligent? They didn't just survive, the medical officer said quietly. They thrived. Look at their history. Ice ages that covered their continents. Volcanic eruptions that blocked out their sun for years. Meteor impacts. Mass extinctions. Diseases that killed millions. And they kept going. They adapted. They evolved. Show me their predators, Tail said. The screen filled with images. Creatures with claws and fangs. Venomous insects. Microscopic organisms that could kill in hours. Plants that could poison with a touch. The ocean alone held horrors that made Dren warriors look fragile. And humans? Tail asked. Where do they fit? Sir, the officer said, they are the apex predator. On a world filled with monsters, humans became the most dangerous thing on the planet. They hunted everything else. Not with claws or venom, but with intelligence, cooperation, and something their files call persistence. They would chase prey for days until it collapsed from exhaustion. They would plan, coordinate, and strike as groups. They created tools, weapons, strategies. Tail looked at the image of Captain Hyanwu still on the screen from their earlier conversation. That friendly smile. Those curious eyes. That casual confidence. They seem so peaceful, Tail said. Perhaps, his officer replied, because nothing on their station threatens them. But sir, I analyzed their physiology more carefully. Their eyes face forward like predators. Their teeth can tear meat. Their hands can form fists or grip weapons. Their bodies produce adrenaline, a chemical that removes pain and increases strength when they face danger. Everything about them is designed for survival against terrible odds. Tail made a decision. We proceed with standard contact protocols. We offer them membership in the Coalition. We share knowledge and friendship. He paused. But we watch them carefully. The galaxy has been peaceful for 12,000 cycles. We've never needed to fear anything. And now? Asked his second in command. Tail looked at the blue planet on the screen. So beautiful and so deadly. Now we've met something that evolved on a world where fear was required for survival. We've met persistence hunters who never give up. We've met a species that looks at death and keeps walking forward. He thought of the word his staff had used. Death world. A planet that tried to kill everything on it. And humans had not just survived. They had conquered it, built cities on it, and then looked up at the stars, wanting more. Record this day, Tail said softly. The Coalition has just met its first apex predator species. Whatever happens next, the galaxy will never be the same. On Earth below, in a small apartment in Seoul, Captain Hyanwu sat with his family. His daughter asked him about the aliens, her eyes wide with wonder. He told her they seemed kind and wise. He told her humanity had friends among the stars now. He did not tell her what he had seen in Commander Tail's eyes during their meeting. That flash of recognition. That moment of fear. Haiyan Wu had seen that look before. In the eyes of animals, when they suddenly realized the human watching them was not prey. He had seen it in his military training, when opponents first understood they could not win. The aliens were peaceful. They were advanced. They were intelligent, but they had never met anything like humanity before. And deep down, Haiyan Wu wondered if that was a good thing or a terrible one. 6 months had passed since first contact. The galaxy watched humanity with careful eyes, and humans explored their new friendship with enthusiasm. The Galactic Coalition established a joint research station on the edge of human space, a place where species could learn from each other. They called it Outpost 7. Engineer Subin checked the power readings for the 3rd time that morning. Everything looked normal. The station hummed with the quiet energy of different species working together. In the cafeteria, Virani scientists discussed quantum mechanics with human physicists. In the gardens, Cash botanists compared notes with Earth biologists. The Dren security teams trained alongside human officers, though the humans always seemed to push harder, run longer, and never quite understand when to stop. Subin liked the station. It was peaceful here, far from the noise and crowds of Earth. She had always preferred machines to people. Machines made sense. They followed rules. They were predictable. Subin, are you seeing this? The voice belonged to Young Sik, the human anthropologist who spent most of his time documenting how different species communicated. He stood at a viewing window, pointing at the star. She joined him. The star burned brighter than usual, its surface churning with unusual activity. Solar flare, she said. A big one. The station alarms began to sound. Warden Krull, the massive Dren security chief, appeared in the corridor. His scales gleamed under the emergency lights. All personnel to safe zones. Solar flare approaching. Shields at maximum. His voice was calm but firm. The Dren had faced dangers before. Subin ran to the engineering bay. Dr. Nava, the cache lead researcher, was already there, her 6 fingers flying over the control panels. The shields will hold, Nava said. We built them to withstand anything this star could produce. Then the meteor storm hit. Space debris, drawn by the solar flare's gravitational disruption, slammed into the station's outer hull. The first impact shook the entire structure. The second impact cracked a viewing port. The third impact hit the shield generator. Warning lights flooded the engineering bay. Subin stared at the displays in horror. The generator is damaged. We're losing shield strength. Reroute power from secondary systems, Nava ordered, her voice rising with fear. Already done. It's not enough. The generator itself is broken. Subin pulled up the damage report. There's a fracture in the main coupling. It's in Section 9, near the outer hull. Warden Krell arrived, breathing hard. How long until shields fail completely? 4 hours, Subin said. Maybe less. We evacuate, Krell said immediately. Standard protocol. We have enough shuttles for everyone. Subin shook her head. By the time we evacuate, the solar radiation will hit. The shuttles can't outrun it. We'd be exposed in open space. Then we stay in the safe zones and pray the partial shields hold long enough for the flare to pass, Nava said. They won't, Subin said flatly. She studied the readings. The safe zones will protect us from the first wave. Maybe the second. But the third wave will cook us all. Unless someone fixes the generator. Where is the damage located precisely? Krell asked. Subin pulled up the schematic. Section 9, Chamber 42. The radiation levels there are already critical. The shielding in that section failed first. How critical? Young-Sik asked quietly. Subin checked the numbers. Lethal dose in 6 minutes for Varani. 4 minutes for Kesh. Drem might last 8 minutes before organ failure. She paused. Humans have better radiation resistance, but even we would die in maybe 15 minutes. 15 minutes, Subin repeated softly. The repair needs at least 45 minutes. Maybe an hour if things go wrong. The room fell silent. The math was simple and cruel. No one could survive long enough to complete the repair. We evacuate, Krell said again. We take our chances in the shuttles. Subin looked at the station schematic. 200 personnel lived here. Scientists, engineers, families. She thought about the Vani children who played in the garden. She thought about the Kesh musician who performed every evening. She thought about Krell himself, who told stories of his homeworld with such pride. I can do it, Subin said. Everyone turned to stare at her. You just said it's impossible, Nava said. I said lethal dose in 15 minutes. I didn't say instant death. Subin pulled up medical files on her personal device. Data she had studied about human radiation exposure. Our cells can survive higher radiation than yours. We have repair mechanisms. And we're stubborn. You die, Krell said simply. Maybe, maybe not. Humans have survived radiation exposure before. We had nuclear accidents on Earth. Some people absorbed terrible doses and lived. Not comfortably, but they lived. She strapped on her tool belt. I have to try. This is madness, Nava said. This is suicide. This is what humans do, Young-Sik said quietly. He was looking at Subin with something like understanding. We see impossible odds, and we try anyway. Subin gathered her tools. Heavy radiation suit, the best the station had. It would help, but not enough. Repair kit. Emergency medical pack. She checked everything twice. Krell blocked the door. I cannot let you do this. You can't stop me either, Subin said. She met his eyes. The Dren were warriors, bred for battle. But they followed rules. They understood chain of command. As senior engineer, station safety is my responsibility. I'm pulling rank, Warden. Krell stared at her for a long moment. Then he stepped aside. Ancestors guard you, small human. The walk to Section 9 took 5 minutes. Subin felt each second tick past. The radiation suit was heavy and awkward. The corridors were empty, everyone else in safe zones. Emergency lights cast red shadows on the walls. Chamber 42 was worse than the reading suggested. The metal walls glowed with heat. Subin's radiation detector screamed warnings. She ignored it and opened the access panel to the shield generator. The damage was extensive. The coupling had cracked under the stress of the meteor impact. She would need to remove the broken piece, fabricate a replacement, and install it without powering down the entire system. Difficult even in perfect conditions. In a radioactive oven, nearly impossible. Her hands began the work. Remove panel. Disconnect power feeds. Extract broken coupling. Her fingers moved automatically, following training and instinct. 15 minutes passed. Subin felt the radiation now, a strange warmth in her bones. Her detector had gone from screaming to just displaying numbers too high to make sense. She kept working. 30 minutes. Nausea hit her, hard and sudden. She vomited inside her helmet, the acidic smell filling the suit. She wiped her mouth and continued. The new coupling was taking shape in her fabricator. 40-5 minutes. Her hands shook. Her vision blurred. Every cell in her body was taking damage. DNA strands breaking. Proteins denaturing. She could feel herself dying at the molecular level. The new coupling clicked into place. Just needed to reconnect the power feeds and seal the housing dot at 47 minutes. Subin connected the final power coupling. The shield generator roared to life. On her heads-up display, she watched the station shields jump from 30% to 95%. Safe. Everyone was safe. She tried to stand. Her legs wouldn't respond. She crawled instead, dragging herself toward the door. The corridor seemed impossibly long. Each meter was a battle. Her body was shutting down, overwhelmed by radiation damage. She made it to the corridor before she collapsed. When Subin woke, she was in medical bay. Dr. Nava stood over her, along with a human doctor she didn't recognize. Every part of her body hurt. Her skin felt like fire. Her bones ached. How long? She managed to whisper. 3 days, the human doctor said. You absorbed enough radiation to kill 5 Dren. Your bone marrow shut down. Your organs started failing. We didn't think you would make it, but I did, Suabin said. But you did, Nava repeated softly. Your body regenerated. Faster than our models predicted. Faster than should be possible. The Kesh scientist looked frightened and amazed at once. We watched your cells repair themselves in real time. You were dying, and then you just didn't. Warden Krell appeared in the doorway. The massive warrior bowed his head, a gesture of deep respect. You saved us all, Engineer Subin. The station is safe. The solar flare has passed. Subin closed her eyes. She felt tired, so tired. But alive. Still alive. Young Sig visited later, bringing her favorite tea from the cafeteria. The Coalition is calling you a hero. They want to give you medals. I just did my job, Subin said. No, Young Sig said gently. You did something they thought was impossible. You walked into lethal radiation and survived long enough to save 200 people. The aliens are trying to understand how. It hurt, Subin admitted. It hurt more than anything I've ever felt. But you kept working. What else was I supposed to do? Let everyone die. She sipped the tea. It tasted terrible through her radiation-damaged taste buds, but she drank it anyway. Word spread through the station, then through the Coalition. The human who walked through death and lived. The engineer who refused to give up. Messages poured in from across the galaxy. But in the quiet conversations between Coalition leaders, a different discussion took place. The humans had sent one engineer, alone, into conditions that would kill anything else. And she had survived through sheer biological resilience and stubborn will. If one human could do this, what could millions do? What could billions do? The Kryn came from beyond the galactic rim, from the dark spaces between star clusters where the Coalition had never bothered to look. They appeared without warning, their ships tearing through space with weapons that burned hotter than Coalition shields could withstand. The first colony to fall was New Vor, a peaceful research world with 3 million inhabitants. The attack lasted 47 minutes. When Coalition ships arrived, they found nothing but debris and silence. High Chancellor Varors called an emergency session. The holographic projections of Coalition leaders filled the council chamber, faces showing fear and confusion. For 12,000 cycles, they had known peace. War was something from ancient history, from the barbaric days before civilization. We must respond, War Chief Than said. The Dren leader was the only one present who had any military experience, and even that was ceremonial. The Dren maintained warrior traditions, but they had not fought a real war in 6,000 cycles. What are they? Asked the Kesh representative. Predators, Admiral Junho said quietly. Every hologram turned to face the human admiral. Junho was older than the other humans the Coalition had met, his hair gray, his face marked with lines of experience. He wore a simple uniform, dark blue with minimal decoration. You know of them? VRs asked. No, but I know what Predator expansion looks like. They hit your weakest colony first, tested your response time, and measured your capabilities. Now they know you're slow to react and your weapons are inferior. They'll hit harder next time. Multiple targets, overwhelming your ability to respond. How do you know this? Than demanded. Because it's what we would do, Junho said. It's basic military strategy. You find weakness and you exploit it. The chamber fell silent. The coalition had protocols for diplomacy, for trade, for cultural exchange. They had no protocols for this. The second wave hit 3 days later. 5 colonies simultaneously. The coalition scrambled their defense fleets, but the Kryn ships were faster, their weapons more powerful. 2 more colonies fell before coalition forces could arrive. At the other 3, brutal battles raged. Captain Dong Hyan watched the tactical display from his stealth ship. Observing a coalition fleet engage the Kryn, the coalition ships fought bravely but predictably. They maintained formation, followed standard defensive patterns, and tried to minimize casualties. The Kryn ships scattered the formation, isolated individual vessels, and destroyed them one by one. They're losing, said his tactical officer. Send the report to command, Dong Hyan said. The coalition needs help whether they want to admit it or not. The message reached Admiral Junho within hours. He called the coalition leadership immediately. We need to discuss military cooperation, Junho said without preamble. Humanity has been part of the coalition for less than a year, Vauer said. You have 3 military vessels. What could you possibly contribute? We have 600 military vessels, Junho corrected. We told you about 3 because that's what the cultural exchange protocols required. We kept the rest back because we didn't want to frighten you. The silence was profound. 600 warships, Than said slowly. For what purpose? Because we're human, Junho said. We prepare for the worst and hope for the best. It's what we've always done. And you want to use these ships against the Kryn? VORs asked. Yes, send us to the frontier. Let us handle this. The coalition leadership argued for hours. Trust was fragile. Humanity was still unknown. But colonies were dying, and nothing else had worked. Finally, they agreed. 3 human warships jumped into the Tarsus system 1 week later. The colony below was under siege, its shields failing, its population evacuating to underground shelters. 8 Kryn vessels orbited the planet, systematically destroying the defensive platforms. Specialist Mincio sat in the drop pod with her marine squad, waiting for the signal. Through the pod's small window, she could see the battle outside. The human warships were smaller than the Kryn vessels, but faster, much faster. They moved like fish in water, darting and weaving, never staying still. 30 seconds to contact, the pilot announced. Mincio checked her weapon for the 5th time. The other Marines did the same. They were young, most of them, but all veterans of the expansion wars, humanity's brutal conflicts during the colonization of the solar system. They knew what combat meant. The lead human ship, the Soul, fired its main cannons. The energy beams didn't try to penetrate the Kryn shields. Instead, they targeted the shield generators directly, overwhelming them with concentrated fire. The Kryn ship's shields flickered and died. Boarding action authorized. Admiral Junho's voice came through the comm. All Marines, execute insertion. The drop pods launched. Mincio felt the acceleration crush her into her seat, then the sudden weightlessness of space. The pod hit the Kryn hull and burned through, the cutting lasers slicing metal like paper. They breached into atmosphere. Toxic atmosphere. Mincio's readouts screamed warnings. The air was acidic, thick with chemicals that would dissolve Varani lungs in seconds. Cash would last maybe a minute. Even Dren would struggle. Masks on. Seal check, Mincio ordered. The Marines snapped respirators into place. Not full environmental suits, just masks and air tanks. Light armor, maximum mobility dot, they could breathe their own air. But the acid touched their exposed skin, burning where the armor didn't cover. Mincio ignored it. Pain was temporary. The mission mattered. The Kryn met them in the corridors. They were massive creatures, twice human height, with 4 arms and natural armor plating. They wielded weapons that fired superheated plasma. The first Kryn died to concentrated fire from 3 Marines. The second fell when Mincio threw a magnetic charge at its feet, the explosion tearing through its lower body. The third managed to wound 2 Marines before going down. The battle became chaos. The Kryn were strong and armored. The humans were small and fragile. But the humans moved faster, thought faster, and never stopped pushing forward. Mincio's squad took a critical junction and held it. Kryn warriors rushed them in waves. Plasma fire filled the corridor. 2 Marines went down. Their armor melted. Mincio dragged them behind cover and kept fighting. 3 hours passed. Then 4. Then 6. Coalition reinforcements arrived to find an impossible scene. The human Marines held their position, surrounded by dead Kryn. Several humans were wounded, some severely. They sat against the walls, still holding their weapons, still watching the corridors. 1 Marine had lost an arm to plasma fire. He had tied off the wound himself and continued fighting one-handed. Another had burns across half her body, but refused medical evacuation. Mincio herself had 3 broken ribs and a concussion. She stood anyway, directing her squad, maintaining discipline. "Why didn't you retreat?" asked the Dren warrior who had come with the reinforcements. He stared at the carnage, at the human casualties, at the pile of dead Kryn. "We were ordered to hold this junction," Mincio said. "So we held it. But the cost doesn't matter. The mission matters." In space, the battle concluded. The Kryn fleet broke and ran, their formation shattered, their losses too heavy. Admiral Junho did not pursue. He had made his point. The coalition fleet commanders gathered afterward, their holograms showing shock and confusion. "Your tactics are reckless," War Chief Than said to Junho. "You lost 30% of your boarding teams." "And we won the battle," Junho replied. "War isn't about minimizing casualties. It's about achieving objectives." Every Marine who boarded those ships knew the odds. They went anyway. Why? Vio, ours asked. Why would they accept such risks? Admiral Junho was quiet for a moment. Because humans understand something you don't. We evolved on a planet that tried to kill us every single day. Predators, diseases, disasters, famines. We survived by being willing to fight when fighting was necessary. We learned that sometimes you have to accept terrible costs to protect what matters. "You're saying we're soft," Than said, his voice hard. "No, I'm saying you're fortunate. You evolved on gentle worlds. You built civilizations without needing to be warriors. It's beautiful." Junho gestured at the tactical display showing the human Marines. "But these soldiers, they come from a world where nothing was gentle. Where you fought or you died. Where giving up meant extinction. And you brought that violence to the stars," Veor said quietly. "We brought the capacity for violence," Junho corrected. "There's a difference. We don't want war. But when war comes, we know how to fight it." The reports spread through coalition space. Humans fought like demons. They accepted casualties that would break any other species. They boarded enemy ships through toxic atmospheres. They held positions long after any rational calculation said to retreat. Specialist Mincio spent 2 weeks in medical recovery. When she returned to duty, She found messages from across the galaxy. Coalition citizens thanking her. Military officers asking questions. Scientists wanting to study human psychology. She deleted most of them. One message she kept, from a young Varani whose colony had been saved. The message was simple. Thank you for not giving up. Minzisel read it once, then filed it away. She didn't feel like a hero. She had just done her job. She had held her position because orders said to hold. She had fought because fighting was necessary. That was what humans did. They saw what needed to be done, and they did it, regardless of cost. The lecture hall on the Coalition's Central University world was filled to capacity. Students and scholars from 40 species crowded the seats, lined the walls, and watched through holographic feeds. They had come to hear Professor Taeyang, the human philosopher, speak about Earth and its people. Scholar Marin sat in the front row, his notebook already full of observations. The elderly Vani had spent 60 years studying alien cultures. He thought he understood different species, their motivations, their values. But humans confused him. They seemed kind and cruel, gentle and violent, rational and reckless all at once. Professor Taeyang walked to the podium. He was middle-aged for a human, with graying hair and calm eyes. He wore simple clothes and carried no notes. Thank you for coming, he began. I've been asked to explain humanity, to help you understand why we are the way we are. This is not an easy topic. We humans barely understand ourselves sometimes. He smiled slightly. But I will try. The display behind him showed an image of Earth, that blue and white sphere floating in space. This is our world. From space, it looks peaceful. Beautiful, even. The Coalition classified it as a Class 12 death world. That classification is accurate. Earth has tried to kill us since the moment our species appeared. The image changed, showing a massive lizard with teeth like knives. We evolved alongside monsters. This creature, we called it a dinosaur. It weighed more than 10 adult humans. It could run faster than we could. Its bite could crush our bones like twigs. And it was far from the most dangerous thing on our world. More images appeared. Saber-toothed cats, giant bears, venomous snakes, sharks, crocodiles. While you were evolving on worlds with mild weather and few predators, we were evolving on a planet where almost everything wanted to eat us. We were small. We had no claws, no fangs, no venom, no natural armor. We were weak, so how did you survive? A student called out. We ran, Taeyang said simply. And we thought. And we cooperated. You see, humans developed something called persistence hunting. We couldn't run fast for short distances, but we could run for hours, days even. We would chase prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. We learned to work together, to communicate, to plan. Our bodies evolved to survive long pursuits. Efficient sweat glands to cool us. Long legs for steady running. Large brains to track and predict. But you became predators yourselves, Marin said. Yes, we became apex predators. Not through strength, but through intelligence and endurance. We learned to make weapons. Stone tools at first, then metal, then technology. But the most important weapon we developed was cooperation. A single human is fragile. 10 humans working together can bring down anything. The display changed again, showing human history. Wars, disasters, plagues. Our planet didn't just have predators. It had ice ages that covered continents for thousands of years. Volcanic eruptions that blocked out the sun. Asteroids that caused mass extinctions. Diseases that killed millions. Droughts, floods, earthquakes, hurricanes. Earth threw everything at us. And you survived all of it, Marin said quietly. We did more than survive. We adapted. When the ice came, we learned to make fire and shelter. When the droughts came, we learned to irrigate and farm. When diseases came, we learned medicine. Every disaster taught us something new. Every challenge made us more resilient. A cash student raised a limb. But the violence, the wars, why do humans fight each other? Taeyang nodded slowly. A difficult question. We fight because we evolved in competition. For food, for resources, for survival. Different groups of humans develop different strategies, different cultures. Sometimes cooperation, sometimes conflict. Our history is filled with wars, yes. Terrible wars. Millions dead. Cities destroyed. We are not proud of this. But it taught us about sacrifice, about protecting what we value, about the costs of survival. You celebrate violence, another student said, sounding disturbed. We've seen your entertainment. Films about war, about monsters, about horror. We don't celebrate violence, Taeyang corrected gently. We confront it. You see, humans have an unusual relationship with fear. Most species avoid fear, flee from it. Humans seek it out. We watch scary movies. We jump from aircraft for sport. We climb dangerous mountains just to see what's at the top. We explore dark caves and deep oceans. We send explorers into space knowing they might never return. Why? Marin asked. What purpose does seeking danger serve? Because fear is how we learn our limits. And pushing past fear is how we grow beyond those limits. On Earth, the curious survived. The ones who explored, who tested boundaries, who asked what if instead of why not. Yes, many died. But the survivors, they discovered fire. They discovered tools. They discovered everything that made us human. The display showed Captain Sang-Hoo's recent mission, where his exploration vessel had encountered a spatial anomaly that warped space and time. Instead of fleeing, he had studied it, collected data, and mapped its properties. Captain Sang-Woo found something that could have destroyed his ship. Coalition protocols would say to mark it and retreat. He investigated it instead, not because he was reckless, but because humans believe that understanding danger is better than fearing it. But the risks, a student protested, are calculated, Taeyang said. Sang-Woo had backup plans and safety protocols. He took risks, yes, but intelligent risks. This is what humans do. We push boundaries carefully. We test limits gradually. But we do push, we do test, because standing still means never growing. Ambassador Hai-Jin entered the hall quietly, taking a seat in the back. She had attended many of Taeyang's lectures, watched how he explained humanity to skeptical aliens. He had a gift for it, a way of making human nature understandable without making it seem threatening. Let me tell you about human values, Taeyang continued. Every culture on Earth, independently, develops similar concepts: honor, loyalty, protecting the weak, sacrifice for the greater good. Why? Because these values helped us survive. A group that abandoned its weak wouldn't survive the next winter. A group that didn't cooperate couldn't bring down large prey. A group that broke trust couldn't function. So human morality comes from survival necessity? Marin asked. It begins there, yes, but it becomes more. We learned that cooperation creates something greater than the sum of its parts. We learned that protecting others protects ourselves. We learned that sacrifice today might mean survival tomorrow. These lessons became values, then ethics, then philosophy. The display showed images of human art, music, literature. Beautiful things created by the same species that had conquered Earth's predators. We are not just warriors, Taeyang said softly. We are artists and dreamers. We write poetry about the stars. We compose music that makes us weep. We build monuments to beauty and knowledge. The same hands that hold weapons also paint pictures and plant gardens. How do you reconcile this? A student asked. The violence and the beauty? They're not opposites. They're two parts of the same whole. We fight to protect what we love. We build because we survived. We dream because we refuse to give up. Every human carries both capacities. We can destroy and we can create. We can hate and we can love. We can kill and we can heal. The question isn't which we are. The question is which we choose. The lecture hall was silent. Tae Yang let the silence stretch. Let them think. I know the coalition fears us, he said finally. I've read the reports. The whispers. Apex predators, death worlders. Too dangerous to trust. And maybe you're right to be cautious. We are dangerous. We evolved to be dangerous. But we're also the species that cries at sad stories. That stops to help strangers. That risks everything to save others. How do we know which version of humanity we'll get? Marin asked. You already know, Tae Yang said. You've seen us for a year now. We've shared knowledge freely. We've offered friendship openly. When the Kryn attacked, we fought beside you, bled for your colonies. Engineer Subin walked into radiation to save people she barely knew. These aren't anomalies. This is who we are. But you're capable of terrible things, a student said. Yes, and we know it. That's the difference. We understand our capacity for violence, and we choose to control it. We channel it into protecting others rather than conquering them. We learned, through terrible lessons, that cooperation brings more success than conflict. Ambassador Haijin stood. May I add something, Professor? Tae Yang nodded. I've been asked many times why the coalition should trust humanity. Why they should believe we won't turn on them, use our strength to dominate rather than defend. I tell them this. Humans have been the apex predator on Earth for thousands of years. We could have exterminated every other species on our planet. Instead, we built nature reserves. We wrote laws to protect endangered animals. We started caring about creatures that couldn't fight back. She walked to the front of the hall. Yes, we're dangerous. Yes, we're capable of violence. But we're also capable of tremendous compassion. We're the species that adopts orphaned animals. That rescues strangers from burning buildings. That sends aid to people we've never met. We're predators who chose to be guardians instead. The students listened, some still fearful, some thoughtful. The coalition represents something humanity values, Haijin continued. Peace, cooperation, the pursuit of knowledge. We want to be part of this. We want to contribute. The warning came from an automated probe that had been drifting near the galactic core for 10,000 years. Its message was simple and terrifying. They are waking. The first hive stirs. Evacuation protocols recommended. Chancellor Vios read the message 3 times, each reading bringing deeper dread. The first hive was legend, a nightmare from before the coalition existed. Ancient records spoke of massive biomechanical entities that consumed entire civilizations, converting all matter into more of themselves. 17 known species had been wiped out before the hive went dormant. That was 12,000 years ago. The coalition had hoped they were dead, or had left the galaxy entirely. They were wrong. The first contact came at Outpost Meridian, a research station studying stellar formation. The station sent a brief distress call, then went silent. Coalition ships arrived to find nothing but debris and a massive, organic mechanical structure feeding on the station's remains. The coalition fleet engaged. Their weapons barely scratched the hive ship's surface. Return fire was devastating. Energy beams that didn't just destroy ships, but disintegrated them at the molecular level. Within minutes, the entire coalition fleet was gone. War Chief Than called an emergency council. His hologram appeared shaken, His warrior composure cracked. We fought them. We lost. Completely. Every ship, every crew. They're beyond our capacity to stop. How many hive ships? Admiral Junho asked. The human had become a permanent presence in coalition military briefings. Our sensors detected 57 before they were destroyed. But High Command believes there are thousands waking across the galactic core. Evacuation? VRs asked. Already begun. We're pulling back all frontier colonies, concentrating populations in defensible systems. But if they keep coming, if they spread across the galaxy, there's nowhere to run. Dr. Yuna, the human medical researcher, studied the scans of the hive creatures that had been transmitted before the station fell. They're part organic, part machine, self-replicating. They convert matter into more hive units. This isn't just an invasion, it's consumption. Can we negotiate? Asked the Kesh representative. No, Junho said flatly. These aren't conquerors. They're a cancer. They don't want territory or resources in the way we understand. They want to convert everything into themselves. Then what do we do? VRs asked quietly. We fight, said General Bao Young, appearing via hologram from Earth. The human general was younger than Junho but harder, her face showing no emotion. And we fight to win. You saw the reports, Dan said. Our weapons don't work. Our tactics don't work. How can we win? By doing what humans do, Bao Young said. By refusing to give up. By adapting. By sacrificing. By being willing to pay any cost necessary. You're talking about total war, Bao said. Yes. The Coalition Council erupted in argument. Total war was barbaric, unthinkable. The Coalition fought to minimize casualties, to preserve life. Total war meant accepting massive losses, throwing everything at the enemy without reservation. Fleet Admiral Insu silenced them with a gesture. The elderly human admiral rarely spoke in council meetings, but when he did, everyone listened. The Coalition has lived in peace for 12,000 years, Insu said. You've forgotten what war really means. You think of it as a political tool, a last resort to be conducted carefully. But the Hive doesn't care about your politics. They don't care about careful conduct. They want to eat your worlds and use the material to make more of themselves. What are you suggesting? VRs asked. Let us handle this. Humanity will form the front line. We'll buy you time to evacuate, to prepare, to survive. You can't fight them alone, Dan protested. We're not alone. We have the Coalition behind us. Your ships can support ours. Your resources can supply our war effort. Your knowledge can help us find weaknesses. But the fighting, the dying, let humans do what we evolved for. The vote was close. Half the council wanted to flee, abandon the galaxy, find new homes in dark space. The other half, swayed by humanity's confidence, voted to make a stand. Humanity mobilized. Every warship, every weapon, every soldier. Earth sent its fleets. The colonies sent theirs. Orbital shipyards worked around the clock, building vessels designed for one purpose: to kill hive ships or die trying. Dr. Yuna worked with Coalition scientists, studying the hive biology. She developed bioweapons that targeted their organic components, viruses that disrupted their self-replication, chemical agents that broke down their mechanical parts. None of it was enough to stop them, but it could slow them. The hive advanced across the galaxy like a plague. World after world fell. Millions died. The Coalition evacuated what they could, but so many were left behind. Consumed by the advancing hive, humanity formed a defensive line in a sector called the Burning Line, a region of dense nebula that would slow the hive advance. 200 human warships took position, along with supporting Coalition vessels, on the bridge of the flagship Sol, Captain Haiyan Wu, now an old man, watched the sensors. The hive was coming. Thousands of ships, a swarm of organic metal moving through space like locusts. All ships, this is Haiyan Wu. You know what's at stake. Behind us are billions of innocent people. Coalition citizens who trusted us to protect them. We're not going to let them down. Lieutenant Dae-sung, promoted to commander now, managed the tactical display. Hive fleet entering weapons range in 5 minutes. Load all weapons. Prepare boarding teams. Set all ships to Protocol Omega. Protocol Omega. If a ship was disabled, it would self-destruct, ramming the nearest hive vessel. Every human captain had volunteered for it. The battle began. Hive ships opened fire with their disintegration beams. Human ships scattered, their smaller size and greater agility their only advantages. They fired back with everything they had. Conventional weapons, bioweapons, nuclear missiles, experimental energy cannons. The hive ships died, but slowly, and more kept coming. Haiyan Wu's ship took a hit that vaporized the port side. Emergency bulkheads sealed, but half the crew was gone in an instant. Continue firing, he ordered, his voice steady despite the chaos. Human boarding teams launched at the hive vessels. They wore minimal armor, knowing it wouldn't matter against the hive's weapons. They breached the alien ships and fought through corridors filled with biomechanical nightmares. Specialist Min Seo, promoted to major now and commanding a battalion, led her Marines into the heart of a hive ship. The interior was wrong, organic walls pulsing with machinery, floors that moved and shifted. Her soldiers fought through it, planting explosives at structural weak points identified by Dr. Yuna's research. Half her battalion died in the first hour. She kept pushing in space. The Soul took another hit. Critical damage. Life support failing. Haiyan Wu gave the order. Helm, set ramming course. Engineering, set reactor to overload. All hands, abandon ship. Sir, the escape pods won't make it clear in time, Dae-sung said. I know. Haiyan Wu looked at his crew, the young faces who had served with him for years. It's been an honor. The Soul accelerated toward the largest hive vessel, its reactor building to critical mass. The crew stayed at their stations, ensuring the ship stayed on course. They hit at full speed, and the explosion tore through 3 hive ships, destroying them completely. Across the battle, human ships followed the same pattern. Fight until disabled, then ram. Die to take as many hive ships as possible with them. The coalition forces watched in horror and awe. The humans weren't just fighting, they were sacrificing themselves without hesitation. No panic, no retreat. Just cold determination to inflict maximum damage. General Bago-young coordinated from her command ship, watching the casualty reports climb. 40% losses, 50%, 60%. Each number represented thousands of dead, but the hive advance was slowing. All remaining ships, fall back to second defensive line, she ordered. We've bought enough time. But Fleet Admiral Insu had other plans. The elderly admiral had been quiet during the battle, his personal ship holding back from the main fighting. Now he moved forward. Admiral, what are you doing? Bago-young demanded. I'm 87 years old, Insu said. I've lived a good life. Let me make it a useful death. He opened a channel to all remaining human ships. Any crew over 70, any ship too damaged to continue, follow me. We're going to end this. 23 ships joined him. Veterans, wounded vessels, those who knew they wouldn't survive anyway. They formed up and accelerated toward the hive's main nexus ship, the massive central vessel that coordinated the swarm. Dr. Yuna had developed one final weapon, an experimental device that would disrupt the hive's biomechanical integration, but it required close proximity and massive power. More power than any ship could generate and survive. Insu's fleet carried 23 such devices. They breached the Hive Nexus with boarding teams led by the oldest veterans. Captain Dong Hyan, now gray-haired and scarred from a dozen battles, led his team to the ship's core. They fought through Hive defenders, leaving a trail of bodies behind. They planted the devices in critical locations, connected them to the ship's power systems, and armed them. This is Dong Hyan. Charges set, detonating in 30 seconds. He looked at his team, all of them over 60, all of them volunteers. "It's been good fighting with you." "Good fighting with you, sir?" they replied. The devices activated.